This channel is supported by Truefire. Truefire is an online library
enough, you can get the Truefire All Access Pass for as cheap as they ever do it, the $99 thing. So just jump and do that if you're looking for the best price that you can get Truefire All Access for.
Right, so a few weeks ago, there was a little bit of a story with this stuff that I thought sort of was missed. As at the time I thought, well, why would you buy one of these when you know, you can get more or less this kind of idea from Suhr for a similar sort of price in certain countries. Now, I asked Fender if I could demo one of these, and this has come from Fender. They asked me which one I was most interested in. I said, to be honest, the ice blue. But this is the Fender American Ultra Luxe Vintage, and this is my first time seeing it. I've just picked it up from DHL. Obviously brown case, clay dots, which look amazing. It smells, as other people have said, that really sweet vanilla smell. Let's plug it in and see how it works. See, the checking is pretty aggressive. I like that, but I'm sure that that's not going to be necessarily for everyone. That is kind of the thing with Nitro, right? That you're going to get checking. This is pretty aggressive checking. Right, I'm going to put in the trem, and let's have a bit of a moment. Frets look tidy. Stainless frets on here. That was kind of one of the bigger deals about this guitar. Stainless frets on a... There's only one other production run Fender that have stainless frets. So yeah, and also I don't think they've ever had like an out of the factory standard run, except for Mexico, that is kind of aged like this. You see this aging on the fret pick guard and aging checking here. I've had a few hours playing this guitar now. Now, when I look back at my playing with it, so this guitar, I got it yesterday about 7 p.m. Quickly, sort of, between running downstairs, because I was looking after Elodie by myself, I would run up here and sort of play some guitar. When I look back at it, it looks to me like a guitar that, I don't know, let me know your impressions on this, but it looks to me like I'm quite comfortable playing it. In my hand, I would say that, so this is like the D style neck. It's a very modern feeling neck. And I guess also not crazy dissimilar to something like a player, in that it's sort of all like the American Professional, where it's a little bit thinner and maybe a little bit wider feeling than a vintage style Fender Strat neck. So I did have some people, I did play it for a live last night as well, a live stream, that were asking, like, so can you explain the name? So first of all, I want to say thank you to Fender for entrusting me to sort of demo a guitar for you. I think that's, you know, I said some things about lots of companies, but I do appreciate it when someone takes a risk. Because, yeah, and I'm not going to just sit here and sort of relentlessly crap on gear. Do you know what I mean? Like, I try to give it like an honest take on some of this stuff. So we'll talk about some of this, and we'll get into like a bit of the elephant in the room towards the end of the video. But before we get there, let's explain the name. So first of all, the main thing you'll see here is Fender Ultra. So don't think of it as vintage. That, I think, is a little bit of a red herring. The Ultra of Fender is like their most modern style Strat. So what we're looking at here is like a modern Strat with modern appointments. The Strat is the shape, however, it's not like anything like an Avery or anything like a, you know, yeah, it's just a more modern Strat. So think about like a Strat post 80s sort of vibe. What we have, some nice locking tuners. We have a 2-point trem, but there are actually bushings, so metal bushings that the trem is set into. So you'd hope that that'd end up being quite a stable thing. It does do a little bit of the flutter thing. It comes set up with 9s, and the action is, I would say, a little bit medium towards slightly higher. Now, that's kind of ideal for me, but if you're a really shreddy boy, I think you'd probably be taking the truss rod and sort of tighten it a bit. But straight out of the box, it's playing very well. It's staying in tune pretty well, as you'd hope. One thing I didn't know, I've never played a Fender Ultra, is that there's like a rubberness to these knobs, which actually feels super comfortable when you're sort of using those. I guess we should talk about what the things that come after Ultra really mean. So Luxe is actually the designation that Fender give for a guitar that has stainless steel frets. Now, I totally missed the Fender Ultra Luxe, which has existed for a while. Now, that did have stainless steel frets. I'm not sure if they still make it. Maybe they do. Then vintage. So this is the part where you get two things going on. So one, you've got not noiseless or modern style pickups, which most of the Fender Ultra stuff comes with the noiseless pickups. These are, what do they call them? Pure vintage 61 pickups. So they're like more period correct-ish. I guess something like what you get in the American vintage series, but pure 61 Alnico 5 pickups, which to me do sound very stratty, which is great in my opinion. And then the other thing is that you get a very, very checked finish. So this is Nitro. The neck is satin Nitro,
but it still has some checking. And if you're looking for a touchstone for this, the Fender Highway 1, to me, is that sort of satin nitro finish. It does have a vintage tint to it. Apparently it's quarter sawn wood as well, quarter sawn maple, so it should be pretty stable. And yes, the finish, the checking is quite wide, but it doesn't have many sort of dings. It has like a few little bits and pieces, so it's not like a all-out relic job. Most of what it's going on is that I imagine they've finished it in nitro and then possibly stuck it in a freezer or something like that to obtain this checking. But I think it's quite a nice sort of like cracked aesthetic if you're into that sort of thing. If you're not into that sort of thing, then yeah, it's a bit of a weird one actually, because I imagine like a Nitro Ultra Luxe that didn't have the checking might even go down quite well with some people. I need to go say bye to the kid. So one of the worries that I kind of have, because I know companies like Peach and I think Anderton's at this price range would be weighing each of these guitars that come in. I think you see there's quite like a variation of weights of Fender stuff in general. Would be that this might have come across being a bit of a heavy beast. Some of the Fender Ultras that I've seen the weights of, to me, seem a little high. But this is about £7 and 11 ounces, which is about just a smidge heavier than I'd like. Like £7.5 to me is kind of perfect. Anyway, so the frets are very well polished. That would be another worry for me, which is like if you get stainless steel frets that have not been sort of mirror polished, then you're going to have quite a kind of gross feel to it. Like the Ibanez AZ Standard that I bought earlier in the year, although it was stainless steel frets, you didn't really feel much benefit for them because it's kind of like stiff feel to it. So it sounds, I think, like a Strat, which is kind of the whole point. Plays less like a Strat. I think there is a definite touchstone here to me, which is kind of obvious, which is like the Suhr Classic S, which those are guitars that basically come out of the factory or did with stainless steel frets and a nitro finish, and some of them, you know, like the antique finish. And the first thing that I thought when I saw these was, well, how come you would buy that and not just a Suhr? Because where I'm based in the UK, and I think in the US, there was somewhat parity in terms of how much you'd pay for this versus how much you'd pay for a Suhr. Now, I've kind of figured out, with the help of John over in Australia, that a Suhr in Australia would cost possibly up to as much as $6,000, whereas this kind of retails even slightly cheaper than we'd pay in the UK. So I think that is part of the reason that this kind of is more of an important guitar than I thought, because like the Suhr Classic S is a bit of a choice for the gigging pro sort of session musician or semi-pro. I think a lot of people like that sort of guitar where it's like a bit of a more modern feel, slightly more retro looks, but also that kind of classic Strat sound, which this kind of does mop up that side of things. And yeah, so I would say to me it makes a bit more sense now, having seen it and played it. Particularly, yeah, as I found out, you know, there's certain parts of the world where just a Suhr is basically unattainable. In terms of quality, I'm overall quite impressed. One thing I did notice that these screws on the back here are not fully in, but I might take that off anyway because I'm tempted to put on a set of 10s on this guitar. It's got quite a slinky feel. It's got 9s on there at the moment. Now, I think I've covered, it's a 10-inch to 14-inch compound radius. Lumen lay dots on the side, but they're not green. They kind of got a vintage tint to those as well, so that's quite a nice feature. What else is there to talk about? I think I've covered most of it. And yeah, so the elephant in the room, the price. So again, like $2,899 in the UK. I think what I'm kind of getting to the point of realizing really is that just how I used to think of money is gone kind of out the window, and that what used to be sort of like a £2,000 guitar 3,000 is the new 2,000. So if you look at like the PRS Silver Sky, unless you get them significantly discounted, they're about 2,699, 2,899. I think you're getting relatively similar levels of quality. Obviously, this is going to feel radically different to a Silver Sky. I might do that video at some point because it is a very, very different feeling guitar. And also, like the Nitro on here looks like Nitro to me, whereas my Silver Sky, the Nitro looks considerably different. But, you know, I think this is something that looks like a Strat, but doesn't feel like a Strat to play and sounds like a Strat. It feels like a super Strat to play, in my opinion. So that's what I'd say. In terms of like money, I do think that this puts the Yamaha Pacifica Pro, the professional version, that looks to me actually like quite a lot of guitar for your money relative to this now, because that's not a totally dissimilar guitar, right, in terms of having, you know, some of these more modern features. It has a Goto trem, has those Neve pickups, has stainless steel frets and a compound radius, a slightly thicker neck than this, I would suggest, and maybe even the neck of the Pacifica I might prefer. That was another thing, actually, like the Ibanez AZ, similar sort of vibe, super stratty guitar. The one thing that I've seen as a complaint often about the AZ is that the necks are just too thick for the average sort of, or some of the average players out there. Now, I really like the AZ neck, and I find it like a really comfortable handful. This is a much more modern feeling neck that actually is going to suit people that are looking for that sort of thing, I think, more than the Ibanez AZ, which is, to me, like AZ, Suhr Classic S, and Yamaha Pacifica Professional. These kind of guitars are kind of, I think, doing that same sort of role. It's interesting, I think, to see Fender doing this. I'm glad I got to try the guitar, and thank you so much to Fender for sending it. It's obviously very easy to find lots of things to like about a free guitar, but if there were glaring issues with it, I would tell you and burn that bridge. But I'm actually quite impressed. I would also say that this does, I think, still highlight the impressive nature of what artist guitars have been able to do for 10 times less money, when actually, like, putting out a Nitro guitar with stainless steel frets and somewhat similar kind of specs, quarter sawn neck, it is kind of crazy, like, how much guitar you can get for your money depending on where you're buying a guitar from. And I think we're now all fairly used to the idea that you're going to be paying a big premium for this made in the USA thing. Now, obviously, if it's Fender, it's a legacy brand. I think part of that is you're paying for the brand, but still, I do think it is a very impressive guitar still. If you're looking for a more vintage sort of vibe Strat, I would say that the vintage part is really just about the aesthetic of the body and maybe the pickups. Like, the actual guitar to play is very much in that ultra sort of zone, which could be perfect for some people, but if you're looking for a vintage guitar, then I don't think this is like a classic feeling Strat, in my opinion. Anyway, that's my opinion on that. If you were looking for something that was like a giggable workhorse, then I think this is what this guitar is trying to address, right? The pro player who's looking for a guitar they can take out every weekend with stainless steel frets. I think that is what this guitar is addressing, and I think they've done quite a good job of it. I'm tempted to change these strings over to 10s, but I'm going to take it to a gig tonight, see how we get on with it, and I'll do a video on that as well. Cheers for stopping by.